I just want to let you know that our founder and chief strategist and overall guru, Tim Vasco, is currently not available today. So we will have other people joining. And I'm the moderator, Jay Goth, and I'll be answering questions. Andrew, I believe, will be the moderator.
That'd be me.
Andrew.
Good morning, everybody.
So I see that we have a number of questions, a little housekeeping and an update. First of all, if you have a question, we have all of the attendees muted because we have a number of people on the call. So if you do want to interact with us, or if you have a question, you need to raise your hand if you're on a phone, and we'll try and unmute you. If you're on the computer, which is the best way to view a webinar, just ask a question in the Q&A or the chat window, and we'll be able to see it. Andrew, we've had a couple of exciting events. Would you like to give people a kind of an update on what's been going on around here?
Sure. I guess the first one is that we have established our agreement with Mauritius, and that's basically is a gateway to Africa and India, and it gives us access to a population of 2.5 million. So we're really excited about that, and there'll be more news as that develops with the agreement with the company that's helping us there. In addition, we have finalized one of our use cases, and that is with a group out of India. And that's sort of a combination of a immigration and an educational sort of use case that we're working on there. So that again is very exciting, and we look forward to reporting on that over the next few weeks. It's all in the beginning phases. There's still a few pieces of paper to dot some I's and cross some T's, but a very auspicious beginning.
Great. And we have on the phone today our new marketing person, Dan Gay. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, Jay, and good morning to everyone. It's great to not be a listener like last week, but actually to be on the call as a speaker here as well.
So any marketing questions come over the transom, I'm probably going to throw them in your direction.
That sounds great, and I've got some things to update everyone on as well. So
cool. Well, if you want to start with your updates, why don't we do that?
Okay, yeah, let's start with that. I just wanted to share some very high-level details on some activities that behind the scenes we've gotten started over the last couple of weeks. And my background is in technology, healthcare, and finance. So kind of a lot of the supply chains that we certainly want to be involved in. And some of the first components that as the executive team and myself have been talking about is the first things that you need to do before you introduce yourself to the marketplace to really scale. And there are really three components to that I'll just talk about today. And the first is to develop our brand and our messaging to the world. The second is to outline our PR strategy. And the third is to develop the go-to-market activities and the timeline for that, which everyone within our company is involved with each of those activities. So I'll talk to the first one, which is regarding brand. We've signed an agreement and already have engaged with a top technology messaging strategist who I've worked with and had the pleasure of doing 4 different workshops with 4 different companies with this individual. Her name's Jo Fukai. She's with BrandDX Strategies. And as I said, behind the scenes, we've already been doing some work there in terms of gathering data, gathering information, and we'll be sending out a link to individuals, both our investors and use case individuals and others that are involved with our company to get your feedback as well. And we'll be doing that within the next week. The importance of messaging is really cutting through all the smoke and clutter, and it's really paramount in the success of any company. And as you probably already know, brand is what resonates in the mind of the consumer or the business person. And what is it that we want the person to think about of us? You know, what's our unique selling proposition? And then what are the taglines and messaging that support that which we want people to know about us and think about us when they do a first, memory recall on just what is Blockcerts. So with that, we'll be going through a messaging workshop here in the next week and a half or so, and that will be based upon some of the initial research. And as I told the team earlier this week, it's kind of like the Wild West out there when you go and look for true competitors or who's doing what. There are lots of white papers and there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, but there isn't a lot of real networks doing real activities, and that's where we will want to place a stake in the ground that we're here. And we've got 13 years of development into this. So you'll start to see messaging come out within the next 3 weeks or so at the conclusion of the project. And then I'll take some questions here in a minute, but let me talk a little bit about the PR strategy. Equally important to the messaging is the public relations strategy. And with any company, you always lead with PR, not with advertising. And your success in terms of branding yourself is through public relations. And we're very pleased that we've engaged with a company and a person that I've worked with in the past as well. Her name is Brooke Greenwald. And Brooke, her past background, she worked with Katie Couric. She was working with NBC Nightly News. She was a field reporter. She worked for the Washington Post, and she's an absolute go-getter in terms of getting in front of reporters and getting in front of people so that we get our message across. We just started with Brooke this week. We're developing our strategies and plans. As Andrew stated, we've got the first component, Mauritius, in getting a press release out next week. That will be our first one. And we've already developed 2 other announcements that will be made following that, or commencing with that. But in addition to that, it's important to start to line up, along with our messaging, to line up bloggers and shows and talks with Tim and with the other executives here to start to hit the airwaves as we start to announce and unfold all the things that we're doing here within the next month. So we're developing those activities right now, and you'll start to see that, and we'll certainly provide that information every time we're sending out a press release, etc. And then the third thing is developing our go-to-market activities, our timelines, and our overall strategy, which we have been very busy developing that component as well. And I don't have an announcement to make there, but you'll be seeing a number of things forthcoming that we've already done, that Tim already has developers working on, and that we're already in the mix, so that we're doing all the right things behind the scenes so that we can prepare for all the good things that we're going to do. So Jay, those were just the 3 bullet points I wanted to talk about on the call today.
Great. And to answer some of the questions that have been popping up in our chat screen, we've got a couple people asking about different ways we're going to be approaching our PR and our marketing. And I know that Brooke is not only, really good at PR, but she's got the kind of connections that can get us into a lot of the areas that we want to have exposure in, correct?
That's correct. And really our strategy is kind of a four-pronged strategy. It's consumers, professional services, SMEs or small, medium and enterprise businesses, as well as investors. And with that multi-tiered strategy, we'll be directing our efforts into areas which will target each of those individual areas with very similar messages, but kind of unique messages as well. So as we look at public relations, there are certain things that take longer to do. For example, getting into Forbes magazine will take longer than getting into an online publication. But what we're currently developing in terms of the strategy is where do we want to focus first, and where is the low-hanging fruit, and where we know that we can start to get some PR pretty quickly. For example, I know that Brooke has already talked to 3 reporters who she's lining up some interviews for Tim. I also know that she's talked to Huffington Post, who has an interest in doing an online article. And she's in the beginning process because we just, I've been talking to her for a month, but we just signed the agreement this week to get started. But you'll start to see those develop here in the next couple of weeks. But certainly online activities, there are a number of technology sites that will have featured articles on. Towards the investor community, equities.com and other focus sites that are focused in that area, as well as the blockchain. There, as we all know, there are a lot of different outlets where we can communicate our message. But as a part of this, we also want to throttle it to the things that we want to do first, and we can't be all things to everyone all at once, and so we'll be very strategic of where we're placing our messaging and where we're going to have articles and exposure.
Great, and obviously video will be a big component of our marketing strategy going forward, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Great. Well, thanks, Dan. That's a great introduction to our people here. And Andrew, I'm going to relinquish control reluctantly because I'm a control freak, but you've got the helm.
Okay. Well, I have a couple of questions from several people that are somewhat related. So first of all, from Barb in Saskatchewan, which is in Canada. She wants to say, what are tokens, and what can I do with it? And then from Jim, as a related question, he says, I came across Crypterium, and they enable cryptocurrency holders, such as Bitcoin, to pay for things over the counter on the MC rail. Can B-Search token holders be able to convert tokens into fiat currency so that we can buy things and on a day-to-day basis?
All right. Well, to get to the first question, what are tokens? Everyone thinks of tokens as kind of like a coin, because that was the first application of blockchain, was cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and things like that. But there are really, all tokens are really is software code. Instead of holding a coin in your pocket, you own a token or access to this piece of software that allows you to do something, whether it's, if it is cryptocurrency, then basically what you're doing is you have ownership of a token, which is you have access to that code, and then you can transfer that code to somebody else through the distributed ledger. And that's a way of exchanging tokens or currency. So it goes from your wallet, your electronic wallet, to somebody else's electronic wallet, but it's not a physical piece of coin. It's actually just a piece of software code. And then if you attach that token to a smart contract like we do, then it becomes a utility token. So a cryptocurrency token, and there's a difference between cryptocurrency and utility, and sometimes you blend the two. But a cryptocurrency token is basically a token that is either mined or existing, and it's simply held as basically another form of currency or an asset. And that token can be exchanged on exchanges. The other question about using your token on, say, a MasterCard rail to pay for things is something that we have looked into. I don't think it's something that you'll see with Blockcerts tokens. I could be wrong. Tim should be the one answering this question, but I know that he has already talked with some large central banks, as well as some MasterCard and Visa rails. We also have our cybersecurity expert, Bill Kincaid, on our team, who has been very active in the online payments and rails space. He's done a lot of work with transferring money from bank to bank and peer-to-peer, as well as the MasterCard and Visa rails. So we do have some strategies in place for being able to utilize our tokens for payments down the line, but initially our payments will be used for smart contracts and things like that. And this will be a question that we'll probably kick back to Tim next week when he's on the line, because I know he's been more active in the technological area than I am.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. So the next question is from John in Vancouver. And he says, I'm hearing a lot about smart contracts, and in the concept of Blockcerts, what exactly is a smart contract and how do I initiate one?
Great. Basically, a smart contract is like any other contract. If you have a contract to, say, purchase a home or transfer an asset, even selling a car, you sign a bill of sale and an agreement. So it can be anything from a very simple contract to a very extensive contract. Those contracts can now be loaded up to a blockchain rail and incorporated into a token. And then that smart contract lays out all the terms of the contract, just like you do in a regular contract. And then as you send out the contract to all the different parties that are involved, as they perform the tasks that are required through the contract, it automatically validates that that person has done that particular thing. So it starts checking off all your little boxes. And as those boxes get checked off, the contract is keeping track of everything. Everyone in that blockchain group is notified. Everyone is holding their ledger piece of that transaction or that contract. So everyone is notified when everything's getting done, and there are ways to communicate interactively with everybody. So basically what you're doing is you're taking the cumbersome process of executing a contract and actually throwing it up on the web and doing it all through the internet, but doing it in a way that, you know, using cryptography and the blockchain, you're able to make it a secure transaction. It's very private, and yet at the same time, everybody knows what each other's doing. Nobody can go back and like change the terms of the contract unilaterally or say that somebody didn't fulfill the contract, because it's all there for everybody to see. So that's kind of how it works. And then as far as automating, all of those processes are getting tracked automatically. And when all the checkboxes are filled, like the money has been placed into the account, all the parties have completed all their things, and it's time to liquidate, then the contract will automatically just disperse all the assets and resources to everybody. So if it's, say, a real estate transaction, the title will get transferred, the money will get distributed, everyone will get paid, all the service providers will be paid, and everything gets done automatically. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen today, but that's what the smart contracts will allow you to do in the future, and that's what we're working towards.
Great, thank you. A follow-on question from Gudrun. She was asking, where is the data stored on a smart contract? And you can throw
Well,
this one back to me if you want.
yeah, I'm going to throw that one to Andrew because Andrew is more of a technologist than I am.
One of the issues with blockchain that you may well have read about is the fact that it's so computer intensive. So what we have adopted in Blockcerts is using our standard platform as the first level, and then our private blockchain is the second level, and the public blockchain, if you like, is the third level. So the data is actually stored on our technology platform, but that information is hashed and copied to our private blockchain, and we then periodically, so that we don't get into the same computing delays and issues that have become a problem with Bitcoin and Ethereum to some extent, it is only periodically passed over to the public blockchain. So within a smart contract, what we do is instead of every term and condition creating a new block on the chain, we can do that periodically. So as to where physically it's stored, for us it is stored on the our basic information, like any other platform. We would store it in the cloud, but the protected data is stored on the blockchain.
Okay, and then I guess we could let Gudrun know that right now we're stood up on Azure, but Tim shared some interesting developments with us the other day. Would you like to let people know where we're headed?
I think you might have been in a meeting that I wasn't in.
Oh, okay. Well, I know that Tim has started the ball rolling on getting us stood up on Amazon Web Services as well as Azure. And
okay.
I know we've been talking with Oracle as well. So we'll be on multiple cloud structures, which will give us additional, not only capability on the physical sense, but also, if something happens and one of our cloud service providers has something happen, we won't go down. We'll be mirrored across a number of different cloud providers.
Perfect. So indeed, I have a little catching up to do. I've been away for 2 days. So
yeah. And I guess I'll hand it back over to you. I know Tim's trying to connect, so we may be able to bring Tim on in a few minutes.
Okay. We may visit that one. Again, there is obviously a concern from Gudrun again about Amazon and Azure are all vulnerable to hacking, and that is true. But what we have done is we have, we are putting in all of the normal types of protections so that people can only access what they're supposed to access. You would actually have to be able to hack into our platform. I'm not going to say that's impossible, because as soon as you say that, somebody will figure out a way, of course. But what we do is we separate our data out into virtual databases. So that is a second level. The data is of course put on there. All of our communications are encrypted. So we follow all of those kinds of protocols that basically that everybody is doing pretty much to make sure that they are protected.
Right, and Tim did go into detail on that at one point in a previous Ask Me Anything webinar, where he explained how we actually take the data and separate it into a number of different pieces and then rearrange them and cryptographically encrypt them, and it's almost impossible. Even if you can decrypt the file, you can't make sense of it because you've only got one piece of the puzzle.
That's correct.
And then again, Gudrun, just so that you know, Bill Kincaid is working closely with Tim. Bill is an actual cybersecurity auditor for Fortune 100 companies, and he's got all the certifications you'd ever want, and he's going to be helping us to ensure that all the data remains very safe. Because I know in fintech we've got some issues, in medtech we've got HIPAA issues, and we really need to make sure that that information is protected for all of our blockchain customers.
Hi, Jay. This is Tim. I just was able to get connected. Sorry, I've been traveling.
Welcome, Tim.
Thank you. Sorry, everybody. I was traveling and couldn't get connected.
That's okay. You're here for the last 2 minutes.
Well, I'm sure it was a good meeting.
Yep, we covered a lot of ground. Did you have, Gudrun is one of our callers, and she had asked about where the data is stored and how is it protected. She was really concerned about being hacked, even if you're on Azure or Amazon Web Services, you know, people get hacked all the time. How do we protect our data?
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. So first of all, data is really an interesting model in blockchain. And since it's a distributed database, what happens is these nodes that we're now testing, I can announce we're now testing them on AWS and Azure. So we've got definitely distribution at this point. Nodes will be distributed, and data itself is encrypted and broken down into hashes. So when the data is broken down, what happens is you've got your private key, and your private key allows you to control that data. So we encrypt it, and your private key allows you to decrypt it. So even if a hacker, and it all depends on how we pass the data across, but even if a hacker got in and got part of your data, they wouldn't be able to reassemble the data to actually use it for anything until you decrypt it. So the private key is the secret to that. It's very similar to something called BitTorrent. So in BitTorrents, what happens is movies is where it kind of started, and images, and they were able to break these down, and there's bits of it contained all over. But in order to assemble the whole thing, you had to have a program to sync it back up and bring it together. And so that's the way blockchain works, is we encrypt the data, we distribute it across all these different nodes, and then we reassemble it using that private key, and only you have that key. So it's not necessarily stored all in one place, if that makes sense.
And then another question that came up earlier that, you know, I tried to answer, but I'm not the expert, was from a gentleman who asked about Crypterium, and they enable cryptocurrency holders to pay for things over the counter on the MasterCard rail. And can BCerts token holders be able to convert tokens into fiat currency so it can be used to buy things on a day-to-day basis as well?
Yes. So when you run through a exchange scenario, what will happen is in the smart contract, you'll have your payment structure. The BCert token goes through that payment structure, and then one component of the conversion of the token or the actual contract for whatever payment you're running will be the payment methodology. So it could be a credit card, PayPal, whatever, because you're going from crypto to what you're really doing is you're authenticating and then saying that this portion of this contract relates to payments. So it doesn't matter what payment. It can be in any currency, any methodology. It can be a credit card, a bank transfer, PayPal, or another type of cryptocurrency.
Great. We had one question from Leonard, and he asked about, will there be a countdown page to the ITO that breaks down the token sale supply, crowd sale amount, etc.? And I know that we're doing a number of changes to our website right now. Do you think that we'd be including some of the stuff that you see on a lot of the current cryptocurrency ICO websites?
Yes, we're actually, there will be a section that's just the ICO website. So the ICO website's actually there. We've already developed it. We've already got the countdown built and the timeline built. What happens is once the timeline goes in, and then since we're starting as a hard fork with the Ethereum network, so we've got our own blockchain now, and the Ethereum standard is the first iteration of the blockchain. Then it will fork into that. We'll do what's called the Genesis block, and that will start the timer ticking. And then we've got the pools identified as to how the tokens will be released. So all of that's programmed, done. We haven't made it visible or public yet. And we will certainly make announcements here on Ask Me Anything, as well as through our various channels, Telegram and so forth, Reddit and everything, when we're ready to go on what the timeline is. And there will be a counter available.
Great. And then we're going to have one final question, Tim. Gudrun again has asked, having the right smart contract is critical. Are there effectively templates for various use cases that keep you from writing a stupid smart contract?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. Yes. So the way the smart contracts work is there will be templates that are structured, and those templates will have specific calls at the protocol layer that will actually do the execution of the smart contract against the blockchain. So those calls are defined by the smart contract. Now, what we're doing, or the way we're structuring this, is when you're on the user side, you can put whatever terminology you want into your contract. So for more of the business case model, you can write the contract and those provisions of that contract however you wish. So that could be stupid. That's up to you.
There is no cure for stupid, right?
According to this, I'm sorry, it will still execute according to the specific terms of the blockchain. And that's the part I think you're asking about, so that we don't let it fail and make stupid mistakes. That is a problem in Ethereum. Most smart contracts that people try and do the first time run out of gas, and so they fail to execute. And we put in provisions so that doesn't happen.
Terrific. Well, that concludes our Ask Me Anything today. Thanks, Tim, for logging in. I know you're traveling and you went out of your way to get a hold of the webinar, but we're glad you're able to make it. And everybody, this webinar is being recorded. It will be posted up to our website later today. And all of our webinars for Ask Me Anything are up there. So if you want to go back and review past ones, those are available. And if you have any more questions, save them for next week, because we'll be here for Ask Me Anything.
And Jay, I'd like to thank you for letting me come in late. I apologize to everybody for any inconvenience. And what I'd like to do is encourage people to join our Telegram community and ask questions there. I monitor it all the time. We've got Telegram communities at Blockcerts as well as at Credence Code. So feel free to join us there and ask us anything on those communities as well. This is an ongoing dialogue, and the more questions you ask, the better it makes us. So thank you very much.
And that's really a good idea, Tim, because when people ask the answers on Telegram, we can go ahead and they'll be available on the Telegram, but then some of the important ones we can bring up at Ask Me Anything for the next one.
Exactly. We can elaborate and fill in the blanks that we weren't able to get to on chat. So please do join our communities. I'd really like to encourage you to do that. And watch for some really exciting press releases and announcements coming in the next few weeks.
Thanks, Tim, and thanks, everybody. Thank you, Andrew. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank